Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's PTK here, your finance PT. Thank you for clicking on this video and I hope you guys will stay with me until the end. Now, if you watched my last video on practical things that I did to prepare before marriage, then I'm sure this is why you are back for the part 2, which I'll be sharing today. Things I'd wish I'd known before marriage. Now, one of the books I suggested in my last video was a book entitled Things I Wish I'd Known Before I Got Married by Gary Chapman. And honestly, guys, it's a really great book. I couldn't recommend it enough. So I'm going to be sharing with you today some things I wish I had known before I got married. Now, guys, don't worry. It's nothing that's terrible or too mind-blowing, but it's just little things that I think would have made a big difference in my expectations of what married life would be like versus what it was like. And again, if you see me looking down, I've got my trusted list to help me to stay on track. Now, the first thing that I would say was something I wish I'd known before marriage is that the whole idea that your first year of marriage is going to be so hard is a myth. It's not the same for everyone. Like, looking back at my first year of marriage, I feel like I spent most of that time waiting for this difficult thing that everyone told me about. Like, I can't even count on my two hands how many people told me, oh, the first year of marriage is so hard, like you gotta be ready for it. So honestly, I went through the first year of marriage just kind of looking and waiting, like, what is this hard thing that everyone spoke about? Now, I'm not saying the first year of marriage was easy, but it wasn't how people described it would be. And that really made me understand that everyone's experience is different. And I feel like the difficulty in your first year of marriage is going to depend on you and your partner, how difficult that person is to live with. Also, how different you are as well in terms of the way that you do things, the way that you look after the household and all of that things and all those stuff. So I feel like that will definitely play a part in the first year being difficult. But I feel like for me, one of the most difficult parts of my first year of marriage wasn't the marriage itself. It was more for me in terms of adjusting to this new life, this new role, these new expectations that I never had before. Like, some of the things I'm going to share with you are quite funny. So for example, something as simple as my husband asking me what's for dinner, like that phrase used to grate me like a grater. And it's so funny because it took me a good couple of months to figure out, like, why does that bother me so much? Like, what is the problem in him asking me what's for dinner? But I feel like it's because when I was single, I never had anyone depending on me. I never had anyone asking me what you're cooking for dinner today. And as much as I generally am the one who cooks the most in the house, and that is fine, it works for us, it doesn't actually bother me, I don't know what it was about that question that would be so triggering for me. And it was like, whatever, I'm gonna cook kind of thing. And it's so funny because he'd always be like, he'd be scared to ask me because he didn't know how I was going to react to the question. And honestly, even for myself, I didn't understand why it bothered me so much. And then it dawned on me, it's almost like a part of me, you know, you have that independent woman side, but then a part of me is very much traditional, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I just wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to someone asking me those questions. I wasn't used to someone being dependent on me. And as a result, it just bothered me. It was kind of like, do you just expect me to cook all the time? So in my mind, and also factoring in women, you know, we have hormones. And especially when you are taking contraception that also has added hormones, that does affect you as well. So that's something to definitely be conscious about. Actually, I'm going to add this. It wasn't on my list. I think one thing I wish I'd known before marriage was how contraception actually works, especially hormonal contraception. I feel like this is an area a lot of people shy away speaking about. Even in private settings, nobody speaks to you and lets you know that, you know what, if you take contraception, there are side effects. Of course, your doctor should explain and you should do your due diligence. But that's something I would definitely want to highlight, the point of contraception, especially hormonal contraception. So let's say you're taking the contraceptive pill or the injection or the coil. I think one of the coils does affect your hormones too. I'm not exactly sure. Do your research. Go on NHS website. I will put it in the link below. But honestly, things like that, it changes you. I found for myself, I was a lot more sensitive than I was before. Like, in the past, people have called me a stone when it comes to my emotions, but I found that after taking the contraception for some time, I was a lot more sensitive than I was before. I wasn't completely crazy, But I was a lot more sensitive. Like little things, I'd watch a movie that probably before I would not even have cried, and just believe I'm crying like someone I love has just died. And it took me a while to kind of connect the dots and realize it's because of the contraception. And I was like, oh my gosh, why did nobody warn me about that? Everyone speaks about the weight gain and that you could gain weight or that your skin can break out, but I feel like nobody really speaks about the hormonal changes that can come from taking hormonal contraception. So definitely that's one thing I would say, that, you know, that's something to be conscious of. And you should really do your research into contraception before you decide making a decision like that. I'm not against contraception. I think the pill, to be honest, is the best thing that has happened to me, in the sense that I've not really gained weight since I got married. Like I gained 3 kilos, but that was not because of the pill. I just, you know, I was enjoying life. But I have lost those 3 kilos, guys. I've currently lost 4 kilos. I'm very proud of myself, but I will definitely share my weight loss updates as I get through it. But anyways, back to the original point. And now you guys can see why I have a little list, because I go off tangent. But yeah, so that's my point. Nobody tells you about the hormonal changes. And I've seen online, I remember there's a thread that I read that a friend had shared, and a lot of women were sharing their experience with contraception. A lot of people had really, really terrible side effects. A lot of people felt very depressed because, as you can imagine, your hormones are up and down. We already have hormones as it is. You're having an added level of hormones in your body. And again, it is something artificial. Your body is not used to that. And just because your friend or your mama or your auntie reacted well to something doesn't mean that you will too. So it's always best to trial these things out before you get married, so that you can already start to adjust and assess whether that is the best form of contraception for you. So yeah, that's definitely something that popped to mind, which is really important. And I wish someone had told me that before I got married, because no one told me. I had to do my own research. The next thing I'd say is every relationship is different. And that links to the first point that I said. Just because Mrs. A and B had a terrible first year of marriage doesn't mean that she will have a terrible first year of marriage. Just because Mrs. B and C had a great first year of marriage doesn't mean you will too. Marriage and relationships in general are individual. And one thing I've come to understand is that what you put into your relationship is what you're going to get out. If you're not investing in your relationship, or let's say only one of you is investing in the relationship, there's going to come a point where you're going to become frustrated. The person that's been doing the investment and the other person that hasn't been doing anything, there's going to build up a rift between you. So I think with marriage, you have to understand that you are going to reap what you sow into your marriage. So if you only sow dysfunction, if you only sow disrespect, just know that's what you're going to get back. So it's very important to understand that you can't measure your relationship or your marriage based on your parents, based on anyone else's, because you are going to reap what you have sown into your marriage. And that's one of the fundamental points I really want to emphasize. I feel like with marriage, a lot of people speak very negatively of marriage. For some people, the whole idea of marriage sounds like you are going into this institution that is going to just cripple your soul, and you are never going to be the same. You're never going to be happy again. And then on the other half of it, you have people that promote marriage and it seems like this amazing, wonderful thing. And to be honest, it is. Like, I can say that my life has become better since I've been married. My life was good before. Listen, I was living my best life, okay? However, I can definitely say that in some ways, as a person, I have matured. I have elevated. I've been able to do things now in my marriage that if I was single, I probably wouldn't be able to do. So I definitely say it has benefited my life, not because of the marriage itself, as in because I got married and now I have a ring, that's changed my life. No, but because of the relationship that me and my husband have been building, it's impacted us both in a positive way. I can truly say that I'm a better woman today since marrying my husband than what I was before. And like I said, it's what you put in. If you're not putting into your marriage or your relationship, do not expect to reap what you have not sown. So moving on to the third point, which I'd say, which is so important, and that's that the pillars of a healthy relationship are the same. So some of the pillars that I wrote down is love. Love is essential. You need love in your marriage. But of course, love is not enough to sustain the marriage. I'm going to say that one again, because I feel like sometimes, especially when you get married, you're in love, you are excited, you even say, I will do anything for them, you know, my whole world is this person, and all those amazing things, you know. think of your favorite love song that you love and you connect with. You say all those words, but once you get married and you're now living together, the reality of life comes. The novelty comes out. You see a different side of that person that perhaps you didn't see before, especially if you never lived together previously. Like me and my husband, we only lived together once we got married. So again, you can see that, once you start living together, you both have different ways of dealing with things. You both have different ways of cleaning. Your idea of cleaning may not be the same as your partner. So again, all of these little things which are so trivial can really have an effect on the relationship if you allow it to. So yeah, so going back to the pillars, see, distracted once again, but you guys stick with me. I'm sure you love it. So yeah, the first pillar, like I said, was love. Love is essential. It's really important. But again, you can even say a lot of people, let's say, that have arranged marriages, sometimes they don't get married with love, but love does develop later on in some cases. The next pillar is respect. Respect is so important on both parts. Without respect, it's going to be very difficult for you to trust your partner, which is also another pillar. There has to be trust. You can even love someone, you may even respect them, but if you can't trust your partner, how can you really be secure and truly happy in your marriage? It's going to be very, very difficult. So trust is important. And the trust also links with faith. Having faith in your partner, having faith in your relationship, having faith in the word your partner says to you. If they say they're going to do A and you don't believe in that and you're questioning and you're wondering, are you really going to do that? Of course can be problematic, and even subconsciously it's going to affect the way that you treat your partner and the way that you operate in your relationship. So faith is definitely important. And for me, I would say having a faith in God has made a massive impact on my relationship, because a lot of things that happen, I try to always look at it from the spiritual side, which is not always easy, especially in the moment when your hormones are up there and you're annoyed and you are just ready to be like, listen, I want to show you that you were wrong. But again, because having my faith, it helps to keep me grounded. It helps me to kind of just take a step back, pause, and just think things through, because sometimes in the heat of the moment, we're not even thinking rationally, and it's so easy to say and do things you're gonna later on regret. So what is the point of doing something that you can prevent? So one thing I'd say in marriage as well, if you are having a difficult time, let's say you're not agreeing with something, take a break. Like, it's not by force that you need to settle it there and then. Take a break and come back to that issue. I'm not saying a month later, especially if it's a pressing issue, but come back to it at a point where you're both rational, you're both calm, and you're both ready to listen. And again, that links to another pillar of a healthy relationship, which is effective communication. You can have love, you can have respect, you can have faith, you can have trust, but if you don't have effective communication in your marriage, divorce is looking at you side eye. Like, if now that I'm married, I understand why people keep harping on about communication. And often when we think of communication, we just think of speaking. Speaking is easy. But one thing I've come to understand, that effective communication in your relationship is not just about speaking and sharing your feelings and sharing what's bothering you, because sometimes that's easy for you. But it's also being humble enough to listen. Not here, but really listen to what that person is saying, really taking on board their feedback, taking on board their thoughts, their feelings, especially when you don't necessarily agree. And this is where effective communication crumbles in so many relationships. And even sometimes, one thing I've noticed, and you know me, I love to read a good relationship book. I'm always reading something. And a book that I was reading last month was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. My mind just went blank. And honestly, it's a very good book. I would definitely recommend it, because some of the themes that it speaks a lot about communication and how different men and women are. And there's so many things that when you read it, you're like, yep, this is true. And the book was written years ago, over a decade ago, but it's so very relevant. So I would also suggest that as a book to read. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray. I'll put it in the description and you can definitely check that book out. So yeah, another thing like that. So effective communication is so important. Being able to truly listen to what someone has to say without interrupting, without giving them a look to the side, without already planning your response to what they're saying, but really just listening to and trying to understand, and getting to a stage where if you don't agree, it's okay. You don't always need to agree. Sometimes you just need to agree to disagree. But again, it's keeping that respect in your communication. And I feel like that is where a lot of people struggle. One thing I've come to understand as well, which wasn't on my list, there can be no pride when it comes to having a healthy marriage. You have to be willing to put your pride aside. You have to be willing to say, do you know what, I was wrong. If you're someone who struggles to apologize when something goes wrong or when you do something that hurts someone else, you're going to struggle in your marriage. If you're someone that your apologies sound like this: I'm sorry I hurt you, I'm sorry you felt that way, you're going to struggle in marriage, because let's be real, that's not a sincere apology. You have to be willing to take responsibility for your actions. Even if someone has triggered you, has said something that has hurt you, you have to be open enough and adult enough, grown enough to be like, you know what, okay, I'm sorry I reacted that way. Yes, what you did hurt me, but it was within my control how I reacted. So being grown enough to admit your flaws and your mistakes is very important. And also the last thing I'd say as a pillar for a healthy marriage is sacrifice. If you're not willing to sacrifice your time in terms of investing in your relationship, keeping that love alive, keeping the spice alive, as they say, love is something that if you don't feed and invest, the love will die. How many couples have you heard that maybe you saw and you looked up to and you said, #couple goals, me and my husband gonna be like this, that got divorced? And the reason wasn't because of infidelity. It was simply because we just don't love each other anymore. The spark is gone. Of course, the spark is gone if you are no longer investing in dating your partner. Like, it's so important to continue to date that person, to get to know that person, to really go out your way. Like, there's couples that have been together for 30 years, like 3 decades. And even then they're like, yeah, the spark's gone. So you have to remember that love is something you have to keep alive. It's like a fire. If you stop putting wood into the fire, eventually it's gonna go out. And it's the same in marriage. And I've seen it time and time again. So for me, going into marriage, I was very conscious of that. And I'm so glad because of the advice that I took, the good ones, and also the books that I read, because it really kind of prepared my mind in that aspect. I understood that love is not just something automatic. It's not just going to stay there because right now in that moment, I love that person. No, I have to continue to invest in my marriage. Now, coming to the second to last point is that how different men and women are. That's another thing that I have come to understand. Of course, before marriage, I knew that, but I didn't really understand it. I knew it, but I didn't understand it. Men and women are so different. We're so different in how we communicate. We're so different in terms of how we see things. And all of these differences, if you allow it, can really build a massive strain on your relationship. And something that I've learned as well coming into marriage is expectations. You have to communicate your expectations. You can't just think, if he loves me, he's going to automatically know how I'm feeling. If he loves me or she loves me, then they're going to do this, and that for me. Sometimes we get disappointed, not because of how our partner is treating us, but because they're not meeting our expectations. So it's so important to really put your expectations on the table, to communicate those things. If your partner is not doing something that you feel like they should be doing automatically, maybe they just don't realize that you're expecting that from them. So really communicating your expectations and also assessing whether your expectations are realistic enough. Let's talk about, for example, women being the main cooker. I was going to say main cooker, the main chef in the house. There is nothing wrong with that. But one thing that is nice is just offering sometimes, oh, do you want me to cook today? It doesn't mean you need to cook every day, but even appreciating the things your partner does, even if that's their role or that's, their responsibility, appreciate that. Let them know, I appreciate you so much. Like, you're always doing this or that really well. Like, I am so fortunate and blessed to have you in my life. Like, just those little things can make all of the difference. So definitely showing your appreciation, never assuming that the person knows how you feel, because yes, you love me today, but I want to know tomorrow that you love me. So communicating that as well. And even in that, that's a sacrifice, especially if you're not someone who is, very affectionate verbally. So definitely communicating that, showing your appreciation to keep that love alive. This is very, 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 very important. So yeah, that's one thing I'd say. And just being helpful. Don't just be this person that you want to dictate. You want to tell your partner, you need to do this and I'll do that. Like, it's all about a partnership. It is a partnership, okay? So partnership means you're working together, not against each other. And that's a very important point that I want to emphasize as well. Work together with your partner, not against them. You're supposed to be on the same team. You're not meant to be opposing. So even though you're different, even though your communication styles may be different, even though your culture may be different, your way of dealing with things may be different, you have to find a compromise that works for you both. And that's one thing. If you're not willing to compromise, Don't get married. Don't be in a relationship, especially if you want it to be healthy, because there are going to be times when you will need to compromise. There's been times in my marriage I've needed to compromise, and vice versa for my husband too, for the better and greater of our relationship. So definitely there has to be a willingness to compromise. Now, the last point, which is something I wish I had known before marriage, is that people will treat you differently when you get married, unfortunately. Like, I noticed when I got married, certain invitations start declining. Like, sometimes I'd see everybody out doing certain things and I'm like, why no one invite me? And then this is what I'd hear, and I didn't understand it until now. Like, oh, we thought you'd be busy. Busy doing what? I'm not in the army. I'm just married. Like, I'm still me, and it's not like I isolated myself, because I really consciously tried to still invest in my friendships the way I did when I was single, because I think the worst thing you can do is get married and then you cut everyone off. Like, it's like, listen, I'm married now, I'm busy. Like, no, I really avoided doing that. But I noticed that people would just automatically think I'm busy. And I'm like, no, like, I have a husband, not a baby. I'm still me, So that's definitely one thing that I didn't realize would happen, but it did. But to be fair, in terms of like my close relationships, that didn't change. But I found that with like my extended relationships, that definitely changed. And I had to consciously tell people, like, if there is something, hello, you can invite me. Like, I'm married. I still have time. I'm not just busy. I'm not with my husband 24 hours in a day. Except for in lockdown, we were. But you get the gist. So that's definitely something to be conscious about. And I think it's something to communicate to your friends as well. Like, letting them know, like, even though I'm married, girl, we still friend, or bro, we still cool, And of course, instilling those boundaries as well, whatever your boundaries are, whatever is healthy for you. But those are some of the things I wish I had known before marriage. There's so many more things I could say, but those were the key things. Now, do let me know, guys, in the comments whether you liked this video, if you want to see more videos that are similar to this topic, because I've noticed that you guys love, don't you? You guys love a little bit of love. So if you're not already following me, guys, do follow me on Instagram. I'm very active on there. I'm always on Instagram sharing useful gems with you guys. So definitely follow me over on Instagram. And also, if you aren't already subscribed to my channel, what you waiting for? Like, you've watched this video to the end, you might as well subscribe to my channel. My hope is that by the end of the year, I can get to that 1K subscriber mark and we will celebrate together. But anyways, guys, have a great rest of your week and I will see you in my next video.